Hi folks, welcome to Skywatch Media News. This is the first week of August 2017. We're going to cover a number of important news stories in this presentation, but let's begin with a topic that I consider to be crucial in the revelations regarding the existence of Planet X. Over the last while, the Vatican has released information about Nibiru entering the solar system. It's being done in a very inconspicuous and subtle manner by the Vatican Hierarchy. Unlike the mainstream media, who attempt to focus our attention on celebrity headlines and political turmoil in Washington, information is slowly being disclosed by the Vatican, which would strongly suggest the presence of the incoming Planet X anomaly and the presence of extraterrestrials who are now apparently visiting the Earth. Here is a bit of testimonial information that would confirm the strong belief that those in power know what is coming or what may already be present in our sky. So here's what we know. In late 2009, the Vatican hosted, of all things, an astrobiology conference, where the origins of future life in the universe, extraterrestrial life, and life on Earth were the main topics. One of the speakers at that conference was a French astrophysicist and a member of the Pontifical Academy. His name is Pierre Lina, and in his address, he specifically warned the Church that they must not be indifferent to the visions of humanity if something important were to happen that would change the vision that humanity has of itself. Now, the keynote speaker at this astrobiology conference was a renowned professor from the University of Arizona named Chris Impey. Now, this is a very worthy bit of information because, if you recall, the Vatican has a large observatory at the top of Mount Graham in Arizona, which indicates that there is some sort of a relationship between the Vatican and Professor Impey. Now, in this conference, which was held almost 8 years ago, this highly regarded professor indicated that the discovery would only be a few years away. So now you have a better understanding of why this conference was convened and why it is so important. The leading astronomer for the Vatican, a gentleman by the name of Guy Consolmagno, stated that the nations of the world will soon look to aliens for their salvation. What do you suppose he meant by that? It is a well-known belief among those in the realm of science that humans are not alone in the universe, that there are other more intelligent non-human civilizations that exist outside of our own solar system. In the Bible, they are referred to as the Nephilim. Now, I understand that many of you truly believe that man was created in the image of God. But then we must consider that if extraterrestrial life exists, then why are they not created in the same image as the human race? If alien life is soon revealed by scientists, then our conceptual image of God as described in biblical text will have to change once disclosure is made. The late Vatican Monsignor Corrado Balducci believed in the alien presence and stated that the Vatican has been aware of this. The encounters with aliens, as described by Monsignor Balducci, were not demonic or psychologically induced, as some have suggested, and therefore they must be studied carefully. He thus became a Vatican spokesman for our galactic neighbors. Does this mean that we should say goodbye to religion if alien life is disclosed? Not necessarily, as religion is a fundamentally important institution for millions of people. It provides a way to commune with our inner self. But it is equally important that we understand and realize that we are not alone in this universe, and to believe so would wholly contradict the concept of life. I have talked about this before, but its importance must be restated. In a 1997 interview with Coast to Coast host Art Bell, a priest who was an emissary to the Vatican, Father Malachi Martin, was asked why the Church was so deeply invested in the study and observation of deep space at the Mount Graham Observatory. Father Martin answered that question, and here is what he said in his own words.
The Vatican has a very, very great deal of power.
That's right.
We've talked about it. They have, whether they admit it or not, a great deal of political power all around the world. One of the things that they did fairly recently was they muscled, and I do intend to use that word, they muscled their way onto a mountain in Arizona, Mount Graham, and they built an observatory on Mount Graham in connection with an Arizona university.
Yes.
However, the Vatican has the larger part of the control of this observatory, looking at deep space things.
That's right.
Now, why would they have done that, Father?
Because the attitude, the mentality amongst those who at the higher levels, the highest levels of Vatican administration and Vatican geopolitics, know that now knowledge of what's going on in space and what's approaching us could be of great import in the next 5 years, 10 years.
Carefully and well-chosen words, Father. Thank you.
The director of the Vatican Observatory, astronomer Jose Funes, stated that we must not contradict our faith, that we must not put limits on God's creative freedom, that even though a divine being has the power to redeem mankind, there are those beings whose redemption is not necessary, as they would remain in full friendship with their Creator. That is a powerful statement if you actually open your mind and heart to this philosophical proclamation. Here's where things get very interesting. In 2005, a Jesuit Vatican insider who resides in the higher echelon of the Church released footage of Nibiru along with secret documentation in a project called Secretum Omega, a top-secret adventure with NASA, whereby a high-powered infrared camera was placed into orbit to monitor the elusive planet. The insider states that the camera was built in the 1990s to observe anomalous celestial bodies that are approaching Earth. While analyzing data and information from the Alaska Radio Telescope, that a deep space probe from the program called SILO had taken a photograph of a huge planet that was approaching our solar system. This information was received in Alaska in October of 1995. This probe, according to the insider, was created in Area 51 in Nevada and has an electromagnetic impulse mechanism. It was then secretly placed into orbit. The purpose of this probe was to approach this planet from beyond the outer reaches of the solar system, correlate its direction, and then return to a position within the solar system where it could successfully transmit the data and images to a secret radio telescope located in Alaska. Now, does this sound too far-fetched to be believed? Not really, since it was already known that the Hubble and the IRIS telescope had already been launched into orbit and had capabilities similar to the ones described by the insider in his disclosure. So it's feasible that the Pope is aware of this and is preparing for its eventual unveiling to the citizens of planet Earth. So if we are to make any sense of these stories, then we have to go back to a September 1984 headline by U.S. News and World Report, which poses the question, is Planet X really out there? Of course, you must ask yourself this question given the information that was already provided from the Palomar Observatory and the California Institute of Technology. In that article, they state the IRIS detected heat from an object located roughly 50 billion miles from Earth, or about 537 astronomical units, where 1 AU would be the distance between the Sun and the Earth. An unseen force that astronomers suspect is Planet X. So it makes little sense to put out a statement of such significance only to go silent shortly thereafter. In 1992, 8 years after the U.S. News report, NASA puts out this press release in which they state there is a large outer solar system body 4 to 8 Earth masses on a highly tilted orbit, which is 7 billion miles from the Sun, which, if their calculations are correct, then puts it between 70 and 80 astronomical units from the Earth, having traveled a considerable distance in 8 short years. Now, once it begins approaching the Sun, this object would then slow down considerably because of the Sun's gravitational influence. But of course, that magnetic influence would at some juncture have to subside, allowing the object to continue on its journey. So there is a mystery in all of this conjecture about NASA and the Vatican, and whether Planet X does or doesn't exist. Here is a question that is yet to be fully understood. Why does the Vatican own some of the world's most powerful and elaborate telescopes? You can bet they are looking for something. They call this giant telescope Lucifer, which is an acronym for the following. And this is a bit long, but here it is. Large Binocular Telescope, Near Infrared Utility, with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research. So, as you can see from this, it is no coincidence that they have this telescope atop Mount Graham. It seems they are monitoring biblical warnings, such as was written in Revelation 8 regarding wormwood, also known as Nibiru, or even the possibility of extraterrestrial activity. Either case, what they are monitoring is coming from space. What role have astrological signs played in historical events over many generations? And in what manner, if any, have they contributed to the recent decline of society and monetary influence? At this moment, Pluto is located in the constellation Capricornus, where it will remain until the year 2023. Pluto is known as a destroyer, which would eliminate anything that is not in humanity's best interests. Now, you may consider this to be coincidental, but the last time that Pluto was situated within Capricorn was in the 1700s during the French and American revolutions. If you look around the world today, you will notice revolutions or protests happening in many places. When Pluto first entered Capricorn in 2008, we saw the collapse of many financial institutions, which in turn created a type of symbolism when a huge bolt of lightning hit the Vatican. Not long ago, Pope Francis released 2 doves into the sky, which symbolize peace, both of which were attacked by a crow and a seagull. Do these types of symbolisms suggest that there is no peace within religion? Did you know that there are astrologers at the highest levels of government and within secret societies who understand the cycles of astronomy and what the energy will bring? Just to give you a prime example of this, President Reagan refused to sign any document until he had the opportunity to consult with a master astrologer. Why? Because they know about the precession of the equinoxes, Pluto in Capricorn, for instance. They are aware that control and conformity are coming to an end. Yet they continue to work against the interests of humanity, while at the same time maintaining their control over us. We are seeing this play out today in both the political arena and in institutions of higher learning where religion has played a major role. Here and now, as I speak, the world's air, water, and food supply is being poisoned. This is happening to us because we have chosen to remain silent. We have allowed others to make decisions for us that are detrimental to our health and overall well-being. I'm sure you have heard fundamentalists tell you that our Earth is only 6,000 years old, which according to their philosophy comes from biblical scripture. But evidence would suggest otherwise. Artifacts that have been discovered from the depths of the Earth indicate that mankind has been around for tens of thousands of years. Here is an example of the time frame of human existence. A bronze coin was uncovered from a depth of 114 feet just outside of Chillicothe, Illinois. According to the State Geological Survey, the deposits from that coin date between 200 and 400,000 years. So here is where the timeline contradiction comes into play. With the exception of only the pyramids of Giza, it would only take a few thousand years for everything to rust or decay if a global catastrophe were to occur now. There would be no signs of civilization after 100,000 years had elapsed. So how long would it take for decay to bury a coin 114 feet below the surface of the Earth, if not hundreds of thousands of years? Nibiru is said to be on a 3,500-year orbit, although the exact figure has varied somewhat. The last passage of this planet may have accounted for the great flood stories that have been told in most every religion. Depending on how close its passage may have been, it could have caused an extinction-level event that resulted in a cleansing of humanity. This then could actually explain how the unknown bronze coin was discovered 114 feet below the surface of the Earth. According to the late Zecharia Sitchin, the Anunnaki created a slave race to mine gold in order to produce dust that would preserve the planet Nibiru. The Anunnaki are the all-seeing eye, similar to what you see on the back of the dollar bill. They are the race that keeps us working as economic slaves all of these many thousands of years. But many now wonder if the shackles of subservience will finally be broken when the alien race returns to the Earth. If this were to happen, everything we have known or believed to be true will no longer apply. So everything today must be done in secret under lock and key. Consider this when you ponder what I have just said. The United Nations appointed a Malaysian astrophysicist, her name is Moslin Othman, to be the director of the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. In essence, she was to fill the role as the Earth's first human contact for extraterrestrial life, if it indeed exists. Much the same as the Pope being the official liaison between the Earth's inhabitants and our galactic neighbors. There are still so many unanswered questions about where we came from and why we are here on this planet. If we follow Scripture, then we believe we were placed here as part of a divine plan to multiply in the likeness of our Creator and to replenish the earth through our fruits of labor. That is what we have been led to believe. But what if we were placed here on Earth as part of a genetic experiment by an alien race that was interested in seeing how humanoids of various races and blood types would get along with one another? The Bible has no explanation for this scenario. What if it is true? Then what are we to believe? If the astrological signs combined with scriptural passages from Revelations and other books of prophecy are to be fulfilled, we can then expect to see a complete collapse of the economy, of government institutions, and religious fundamentalism. We are powerless to change this because the signs emanate from the energy created in the heavens. The elite, in all of their infinite power, will continue to persuade the masses to follow them, while at the same time suppressing our technology and poisoning our atmosphere and our environment. They will do this until which time they are finally exposed for their crimes against humanity and their manipulation over the masses. The small 1% of the world who control us are actually worth more than the billions of people on this planet who are among the poorest. How can this be? And how could this be allowed to happen? It is time for a cleansing of humanity, a reset that will favor the least among us, and this time the privileged few will be powerless to stop what is coming.